Good morning, comrades. This is sombre. This is meant to make you think. Can you see him? Well, can you see the polystyrene part of this head? You can see this respirator, I believe it is called. It's an ex-Yugoslavian one, produced back in the 60s for defence against chemical weapons, nuclear and biological attack. The hat is Russian, okay? But before you all start labelling me a pinko communist who's trying to kill the Queen, just as I remove the, well, I was going to remove, to actually use it, by the way, you need to remove that from the end of the filter. But before you start accusing me of being a pinko communist who absolutely hates the royal family and wouldn't fight for this country and wouldn't go to war and is a pacifist like Jeremy Corbyn and would sit down and let the Red Menace rule over us, would sit back and let the Russians or the Koreans, Red Power women here on the Airstrip 1. Let me try and show you something else. Look at this image. Can you see it? Look at that image. Just take it in. Yeah? Take it in for a moment. Easy to find. Look up survivors of Hiroshima on Google. Look them up any time. That's what we're dealing with. That's what I'm going to talk about this morning. Survivors of Hiroshima. Just look for a moment and ask, do you really think this is even going to protect me against something like that? Of course it's not. That was end of the last war, 1945. Completely different set of circumstances, not something I want to debate the rights or wrongs on. A matter of historical record. 2 then atomic bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That was the effect on one of the survivors. I want you to think now really carefully, not just about Donald Trump in this context of nuclear weapons and all that he threatens to do, but I want you to think about our Defence Secretary, Michael Fallon, and our Prime Minister. I won't even mock her because this is too serious to even mock her. You can't laugh about this. This is serious. This is meant to make you afraid. So even our Prime Minister has told the world, and will use it as an election promise, that she would make first use, a preemptive strike of nuclear weapons. It's what she thinks she would do. She would go first, yeah? So if she goes first, probably much worse than that. But you do realise, don't you, that that's not going to happen to Theresa. You understand that that's not going to happen to her cabinet, her senior advisors, her generals, Prince Philip, the Queen, the head or the most senior person in your local council, the area where you live. Well, we know, don't we? They'll be deep underground. this woman and her government are playing with the lives of the people, not just in this country, but the life of humanity on this planet. They are beginning to think, believe, and understand that a nuclear conflict could be managed. They might just dial in a little tiny warhead and drop it on Kim Jong-il's forces, or they might dial in even a smaller device, not much bigger than the mother of all bombs, and they might drop it in Syria. Why would they do it? I'm almost crying as I think, why? I'll tell you why I'm nearly crying. I'll tell you exactly why. Should be the reason that would make most of you either cry or nearly cry. I'd weep for humanity. I wouldn't even weep that people could be so stupid. I would just weep for humanity before the flash burns tore apart or melted my skin. Before, like that person in that picture, either I am just toasted carbon atoms somewhere in the atmosphere, before Airstrip 1, as I call it, America's land-based carrier off the face, or off the coast of Europe, is flattened, before Airstrip 1 is flattened, yeah, I might have time to weep for my kids, who will never really grow up. Might have time to weep for all the babies in the maternity wards at the hospitals near you that would be extinguished in an instant. Might have time to weep for my wife, my own pain, the pain of millions of others. And if he does it, if any of them do it, greed, selfish, outright human greed, the unspeakable evil of greed, will be behind why they do it. Do you know what? I could never forgive anybody who did that. I could never believe that any human being like Michael Fallon would stand up and tell the international community that under the right circumstances he was prepared to launch weapons obviously hundreds of thousands of times more destructive than the weapons that caused those things in Hiroshima. Weapons that will destroy cities in a nanosecond. I don't know how anybody, any human being, could actually launch one of those. I don't know how. I really don't. I'll tell you the truth, although I love my dad deeply, I love him to bits, and I know he's no longer here, and I know he served in the British Army, and he was a fantastic guy, and as I've said to you many times, like many in his generation, he fought the very kind of fascism that we are now leading towards, yep. Although I will always love him, and I will always treasure his memory, and I will always honour his memory. I wouldn't press any button to do that. I wouldn't launch missiles, give commands to destroy the world. I wouldn't do it. I just couldn't. I wouldn't. Think about it, please. You have to stop these madmen. You have to stop them. Because while you're all busy watching the distractions, looking at the entertainment, while everyone's going wah, 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 wah in the House of Commons, while Michael Fallon's going, the British people in their righteous might. Yeah, well, we all know where that quote came from. While they're saying that, just remember that when it all goes pear-shaped, they'll be deep underground. And it's you that will suffer and die. Sombre, I know. And it makes me feel incredibly sombre. But think about who you are going to vote for. Whatever I say, I'll say it again. Vote Labour. Because we're better than these warmongers, than these greedy people, than these people who want everything for themselves and nothing for the majority. Vote Labour because you actually do care about your children, about your parents, your grandparents, because you want them to have a security and a future. Think about it. It could happen. Let's try to make sure it doesn't.